He is ruthless, determined, and deadly. He is one of the greatest military tacticians the world has ever known. A brilliant strategist, he leads men who gladly kill for him and die for him. All for the greater glory of Greece. He is Alexander the Great. In the 4th century BC, Alexander rules more than half the known world, but it's not enough. He wants more. Hungry to expand his empire, Alexander looks forward to his newest conquest, India. All that's preventing the Greek leader are 2 immense rivers and 750,000 Indian soldiers. .331 BC, the Battle of Arbela. Nearly 50,000 Greeks fight their longtime enemy, the Persians. For hundreds of years, these 2 superpowers have spilled each other's blood. The Greeks are outnumbered 2 to 1. But on this October day, they emerge victorious and change the course of history. Credited to the tactical brilliance of the 25-year-old commander, Alexander the Great. It's his time now.
Alexander has this kind of larger-than-life aura about him. He's handsome with a muscular build, and he's extremely charismatic. His troops pretty much worship him.
In less than 5 years, he had managed to carry out a major strategic plan from Greece to invade Persia and destroy the Persian Empire. In 5 years, he managed to suppress his own domestic opposition, and then finally was able to force a cataclysmic battle in modern-day Iraq on the plains of Arbela, where he destroyed the last remaining Persian army, and then by right of conquest became emperor of all of Persia.
Some say Alexander's pedigree destined him for greatness. They believed he's a descendant of Hercules on his father's side and Achilles on his mother's. Alexander's empire now stretches from Greece to Egypt to modern-day Afghanistan, one of the largest in the history of the world. But Alexander's appetite for power and glory is insatiable. 5 years after he defeats the Persians, Alexander is ready to take on a new opponent. He stands with his 32,000 battle-tested soldiers along the banks of the Indus River, poised for his next conquest, India.
It's been a busy 8 years for Alexander, who's not even 30 years old yet. He's now Emperor of Persia after defeating the mighty Persian Empire in a very bloody campaign. He's Pharaoh of Egypt. Didn't even have to raise a sword there. They just gave up. Now he's knocking on India's door.
From a geographic and tactical perspective, the problem is to get to India, you have to cross 2 major rivers, the Indus and the Hydaspes River.
For most armies, these rivers would be too great to overcome. But not for Alexander, whose foresight and planning are legendary.
A couple of years in advance, 2 years in advance, he orders shipwrights to come from the coastal area of Syria and to build boats to ferry his troops across the Indus River.
Once Alexander crosses the Indus, he must contend with King Ambi, ruler of Taxila. Taxila is the capital of the country of Punjab, which sits between the Indus and Hydaspes rivers.
Ambi can do one of 2 things. He can fight and see his city annihilated, and probably get strung up. Alexander was known to have made examples out of opposition leaders with slow, painful, very public deaths. Or he can play ball, preserve his city, and maybe even save his throne.
Ambi wisely avoids confrontation. Alexander crosses the river and easily commandeers Taxila, turning it into a base of operations for Indian invasion. The next hurdle is reaching and crossing the second river, the Hydaspes. It's 100 miles away, but Alexander has anticipated this as well.
The army can't carry entire boats 100 miles across India to the Hydaspes. So they break them into parts and haul them piecemeal.
What they were these kind of collapsible boats where the frames could be built and the skins transported and the buckets of tar individually, and then when you're going to cross the river, you assemble them a couple of days in advance.
It takes 2 months for Alexander to reach the Hydaspes River. He leads 23,000 infantry and 9,000 cavalry, a loyal, committed army. Many have been with Alexander from the beginning, drawn by the power of his personality and his dreams of glory.
They fought for honor and individual glory, and all their myths were of great warriors, from Agamemnon 1,000 years before to Achilles and Hercules. All of these are great warriors. They get everything because they're great warriors. So essentially, being a hero for Alexander, being a professional warrior, perpetually seeking more and more glory, I think psychologically became what amounted to a way of life.
Alexander's adversary, once he crosses the Hydaspes River, is an equally proud and brave warrior, the Indian king Porus of Coreva. Porus descends from a long line of soldier kings. Well over 6 feet tall, Porus is a giant by 4th century BC standards.
In his usual style, Alexander first tries conquest by diplomacy. He sends for Porus and invites him to a meeting. Alexander's basically offering him a chance to avoid destruction if he pays tribute and gives up his throne peacefully.
Porus doesn't just refuse to surrender. He actually challenges the legendary Alexander the Great to fight. He says, "Yes, I'll meet you on the battlefield."
Porus is prepared to defend his kingdom at any cost.
Porus has under his command about 30,000 infantry troops, 2,000 cavalry, and 300 chariots. But he's got one thing that neither Alexander nor the Greeks have ever seen.
He has 200 war elephants ready for battle.
The elephant was a highly developed instrument of war in the Indian army. It took about 10 years to train the elephant, and they were exceedingly well trained. They responded to name calls, they responded to whistles, and they fought.
So, if we imagine what's going on now, you have Porus on the far eastern side of the Hydaspes River, ready to oppose Alexander's crossing. On the western bank, you have Alexander's army. And in between flows a fairly wide, fairly deep, and fairly rapid Hydaspes River.
Alexander is faced with a great challenge: how to get his 32,000-man army across the raging river while maintaining the critical element of surprise.
But how? If he just crosses right under Porus's nose, his troops are going to be sitting ducks. Indian army will easily pick them off with their arrows midstream or when they try to reach the other side. So Alexander needs a tactical plan. And he puts into motion what will be an unbelievable game of cat and mouse with Porus.
When in doubt, deceive and dissemble. And he begins with the simple act of ordering up grain from his logistics supply lines. Grain shipments begin to arrive. And the reason for this is psychological. It's late spring, early summer.
What you conclude is that they have no intention of crossing until later in the campaign season, when the river's current and depth are lowered.
Now that Porus is convinced that the crossing won't take place until the next season, Alexander mobilizes his men.
The second piece of deception was to begin to move his elements of his army, mostly cavalry, but some infantry. He would march them up and down the riverbank, upstream, downstream, upstream, downstream. Initially, what does this tell you if you're Porus? He's looking for a place to cross. He may use it in the future, but he's looking for a place to cross. This is good. I'll find out where he's going to cross, and what I'll do is I'll deploy my forces against it. So Porus takes his army and starts following Alexander on the opposite bank.
Porus mirrors the Greek troop movements with his entire force.
And this goes on for a week or two, and Alexander always returns to camp, at which point Porus concludes that this is pointless. All right, he may be looking for a place to cross, but in any event, there's no need for me to move my entire army up and down the field. So what he does is, instead of doing that, he just posts pickets on the other side of the river.